Welcome to another in our LinkedIn's live series. Today we've got Neil Curry from TargetRecruit, and we're going to talk through the interesting topic of Agentic AI. Now, if you've not been living anywhere other than a rock for the last 2 years, you wouldn't, and in the recruitment world, you would just hear AI, AI, AI. But not all AI is equal. So we're just going to have a chat, Neil. I think that's the easiest thing to do. So Neil, did you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Thanks for having us. Neil Curry. I'm the sales director for TargetRecruit in EMEA. TargetRecruit, for those of you who aren't aware, we're a CRM provider built on Salesforce. So global organization helping companies get onto a truly enterprise platform to help them run the business.
Fantastic. Good to hear. So Neil, Agentic AI, how would you describe it?
So agents or Agentic AI, it's the next, or it's the new wave in the whole AI conversation. So the way that I would describe it is it's having an AI buddy, digital assistant sitting on your shoulder doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So whereas previously you would have, if you're using generative AI tools such as ChatGPT, you'd have to write something in, know your prompt, get the answers back. Fantastic, made great leaps with that. Then people use Gen AI, and that sat on top of automation. That took AI to the next level, whereas Agentic AI is the next level beyond that. So it understands what you want to achieve, and then it goes off and does it, and it learns during that process as well. So yeah, it's like having a digital AI buddy sitting on your shoulder, doing all the tasks that you were perhaps never employed to do in the first place.
Can you give an example of where you see Agentic AI really coming in recruitment?
Yeah, I'll give a straightforward example. So let's imagine that you have a job you want to fill and you've got a list of candidates which your CRM has automatically matched. You can either ask the agent or it can do it on your behalf and say, okay, go away and look at all of the candidates which meet the requirements of the job, but I want it based on work experience. I want you to give us a list of the top 10 candidates. You then look at the top 10 candidates. You can ask it for justification as to why they were ranked 1 to 10. You say, okay, get rid of 7 of them. Please send them a decline email. The remaining 3, take them forward for interview. Okay. Now you can prompt the agent to do each of those steps, or the agent can just do it automatically. So when you get you post a job, you get applications, by default, it can automatically just get you to that final 3, so you haven't had to do any of the screening yourself. Now, are people ready for all of that at once? Potentially not, but that gives you an example of how powerful agents can be, either with or without human intervention.
So I think the interesting thing for me about agents is their ability to potentially obviously replace tasks, but potentially replace people. And is that something that obviously Salesforce have done a lot of work in this space? What is the general feeling around how this goes?
So there's a couple of things there. Will it replace people? Yes, I think it will. But the way that people are approaching it is, rather than expanding their workforce, they're looking at where technology can actually fill in those gaps. So I think initially it will actually redefine roles. So you'll look at what you do on a day-to-day, and then you'll identify, once you know the full capabilities of agents and you've got company buy-in, etc., you'll then use agents to take away a lot of the noise of what people are doing right now. So I think it'll actually redefine what we know right now in our day-to-day working life. You know, we've all been there scrolling through Excel spreadsheets, doing searches on Google, trolling through LinkedIn. You won't need to do any of that anymore necessarily if you're using agents in the right way. But what it'll do is it'll free up your time for other tasks. Will it, though, replace human? I mean, it will, but I mean that tends to be in those roles where it's, say, it's very transactional. There's a lot of admin, and it's not particularly highly skilled. There's not a requirement for what you might be doing if it's not. You don't need a lot of reason. You don't need a lot of negotiation. You don't need problem solving. That's where agents can come in and just do those processes for you. So ultimately, yes, it'll negate the need to be hiring new bums on seats, but I think what it will do is it'll free up time and redefine what roles will look like going forward in the future if used properly.
I think the other thing for me that's very interesting is that unlike probably automation or probably even the very first generation, it's not going to be a we hire a person or we use a bot. There's going to be some costings in this as well, isn't it? These things aren't going to come cheap.
No, they're not. They're not free of charge. It's not like you can just put it in and be quite blasé, because there is a cost associated with it. You also need to know that how to use it and the impact it's going to have on your business. So I'll give you an example. I mean, when we work with LinkedIn, and we know that the majority of people apply for a job at 9 o'clock at night. Now, let's imagine you're getting a whole load of questions from candidates into your inbox in the morning when you wake up and check your emails. Now, why shouldn't you just be answering those questions at 9 o'clock at night? One, because you probably don't have the capacity to do so, and you're not going to hire someone to be fielding questions late at night. But you can put an agent on your website. Don't think of it as chatbot. It's much more advanced than a chatbot, where it can have live human-like conversations with candidates, answer their questions, and it gives a much better experience to candidates. So you're going to improve dropout rates and the time to hire. Most businesses aren't going to hire somebody specifically to field questions from candidates late at night, like I say. So that, in that case, it's actually plugging a gap of something where you wouldn't be hiring someone to fulfill that task in the first place. So, but there is a cost associated with it. So there might not be a cost associated with doing anything now, because you don't actually have someone sitting on your website waiting for those questions to come in, but there will be a cost associated with it if you do. Now, it's not as expensive necessarily upfront as hiring someone new, but the more volume that those agents are asked to do and the more processes that they manage, the higher the cost there is.
This is an interactive session as well, so we've got a number of people obviously watching live now, so just feel free to stick something in the comments if it's a question, and or just make a comment, and we can talk to that as well. So I feel like we're at very much an early stage of this. It feels very much like almost the start of the internet, when no one knew what was really possible, but everyone felt this feels like a very big step change. Now, the generative AI has been game changing, I think, in terms of some of the stuff it can do. In terms of my work, it's really helped, and it's really added, and it's made me, I think, a lot more efficient. When do you think this will really start to make a difference? Like, I think people have only just started to really get the benefit of some of the Gen AI stuff, but when do you think the agents will really start to take effect?
I think it's like most areas with AI, it'll come in slowly, and people might not even know that it's an agent necessarily conducting the task on the behalf of the individual. I mean, if you think about generative AI, it became accessible for people in their personal lives, and then crossed over almost immediately to people's work lives. But it was done in a lot of cases in isolation. People were just signing up and using AI, the Gen AI tools, rightfully or wrongly, to be helping them with their job. I think it'll be the same with agents, but personally, I think the technology is there now. I don't think necessarily a lot of businesses are prepared to assess and adopt that tech as we speak. Like, you could run a large part of your business, front, middle, and back office, using agents right now if you knew what to do. I don't see it. I don't see people using that right now. So the tech's there, so that the suppliers want people to be using it, but the actual understanding and the education and adoption is not.
It feels like that, as you say, the tech's there, but potentially the belief and the trust isn't there yet. So if you,
I think it might be more than that. I think it's actually knowledge. It's the knowledge of the capability of the agent. Now, if people truly knew what they could do, I think there would be a lot more adoption across the industry than we're seeing. So, and trust, you're right, trust does come into it, but I think that's starting to become, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I think that's starting to become a poor excuse. Because if you do your homework on the suppliers and you're careful with your data, and then you're updating your data protection act so everybody knows how you're handling candidate and client data, you haven't really got an excuse not to be adopting this tech. But I think it's knowledge. I think it's knowledge of knowing how to do it and what their capabilities are. But that's also for tech providers to be raising that awareness as well. It's not all down to the companies to do the education and learn it and roll it out and adopt it and make sure that it's being used correctly. That does fall on suppliers.
Do you think it's almost the same as the firms who train their staff well are generally the better ones? The firms that train their agents going forward, are they going to be the ones that have the best success?
Oh, without a doubt. And it's going to be one big trend at the moment is, yes, the agents are sitting on top of the technology, but it's when the agents are sitting in the technology. And that might sound a little bit fluffy, but it's when the agents are literally living and breathing within your own systems rather than just fixing little problems here and there. That's where there'll be a big benefit to the use of agents. But I think as well, they do take some training. You do have to spend some time in making sure the agents are doing what you expect them to do. So, but that's just like any other tech that you roll out. You're still going to have to look at some form of setup, some form of config, some form of rollout, some form of adoption. You're still going to have to keep on top of it. So businesses are used to that. They just need to. I think there's just a lack of awareness of what the capabilities of them are. But we know that about 2 years ago, we had a lot of businesses out there who were unfortunately having to streamline operations and get rid of a big chunk of their workforce. We haven't necessarily seen a lot of companies now hiring in anger, and I think a question which I get asked a lot is how much can the technology replace a new hire, which we don't necessarily want to make.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see. I mean, obviously, I think generally, I think there's been a bit of natural attrition. If you look at the S3 numbers, the Hayes numbers there's been some natural attrition. And yeah, the question will be, with their technology programs probably relatively well advanced, do you think that they'll be hiring back or the need to hire back in the same volume?
No.
So, well, we shall see. Question from David Jenkins, and this is probably for our groups one of the most interesting questions. From a sourcing perspective, would you expect agents to enable recruiters to move away from LinkedIn Recruiter? Will agents get people off the LinkedIn crack pipe?
Yes, they will. Because you can get agents now which are going to go, you can get tools, whether it's agents or not, but you can get agents which follow your instructions and then go off and try and find candidates based on the requirements of the job. It'll then go in, look at much more than just LinkedIn. It'll be trawling through different data sources, email signatures and the like. So I don't think it's going to be a wholesale change overnight, but I think there'll be less reliance on LinkedIn Recruiter, yes.
And so what will LinkedIn do to counter that? Because they're pretty good at maintaining their revenues or will you be able to buy your own LinkedIn resourcing agent?
I would think that'll be around the corner. I mean, if you look at what they've done, they're starting to drum up some excitement around, your AI LinkedIn Recruiter through LinkedIn. I mean, there's mixed reviews of how effective that actually is, but I've sat in rooms where I've been sitting on a panel and LinkedIn have been there or they've been in the audience, and they know that they're going to have to change with the times. So I would be very surprised if they haven't got some pretty good ideas to keep people sticky to LinkedIn.
Question from Joel Bentley. Integration is the major issue with agents. Most CRMs try and create their own tools. Are there any agent tools, integration tools, and CRMs you found just work well together? Neil, I appreciate you might have a bias on Salesforce, but that's that's accepted.
Yeah, I can answer that. Thanks for the question, Joel. So, yeah, so as I mentioned, TargetRecruit is built on Salesforce. Salesforce are throwing everything at agents right now. If you go to any of their events, all they talk about is agents. Their marketplace, where they've got called the App Exchange, they've with 4,000 plus apps and technology partners on there. They've got Agent Exchange now, so they've actually got a dedicated area just for agents. So they know the capabilities and the promise of what agents are going to bring to the market. So they're naturally going to build their own agents within Salesforce, which can then be applied directly within the CRM. So that's a great step forward. And I think, going to your question, Joel, there are other CRM providers out there, as well as us, as well as TargetRecruit, who are building their own agents within the CRM. But that's not to say that you only have to use the agents which are being built by your incumbent CRM provider. There's a lot of agent capability out there, and there's a lot of providers out there as well. And the integration into different CRMs and third-party tech is so much easier than it ever has been. So if you look at Make.com, if you look at Zapier, they're very good at knitting multiple tech all together and talking between different platforms. So I think we'll find that there'll be a handful of strong technology providers with agents, just like there is in any circle in the recruitment industry, and they'll be the ones who are doing very well, but they'll have to integrate into the CRM and other business dependent systems.
So we've got Tom Selleck. AI CV matching is overwhelmingly poor so far. I think, yeah, I mean, I probably tend to agree. I think we've seen some matching, but it's getting there. How quickly do you expect this to improve?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it done pretty well with certain suppliers. I guess it all depends where the problem lies. Is it the actual matching, or is it the data? Or is it the job description that it's trying to match to and it just throws it out? So I think it's trying to point the finger of blame is probably quite difficult, and it would have to be done on a case-by-case basis. But again, there's a lot of noise in that area in the market around AI CV matching, and it's a relatively easy way to get into the AI world, and it can be very cost effective compared to something like a LinkedIn Recruiter, which is a license which is expensive, and it takes a lot of manual time to be finding what you're after. So how quickly can we expect it to improve? It's hard to say, but there's literally changes within AI by the day. I'm signed up to daily newsletters. I get about 5-6 into my inbox every day. If you read them, there's like substantial changes to AI on a day-by-day, week-by-week basis. So it won't be long before that's tidied up and it's giving you what you need. But to be specific, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's specific to industry, and I think the thing that it will get better and better as it learns. This is the
of
thing.
Course.
A bit like the note takers. When you go back, and the first note takers would have used 2 years ago, a year ago, they just got exponentially better. And I feel that around CV matching, CV screening as well. That I think I can't see it going another year and not being better than resources. That's my hot take, and no doubt someone in a year's time will come back and tell me how wrong I was. So here we've got from Jamie Reynolds. Do you see agents' capabilities to have actual conversations with candidates and replace things like screening calls and first stage interviews?
It's already there.
It's here, yeah.
Already there, Jamie. Yeah. So
yeah, we saw some at the expo actually, and okay. And I think again in certain markets, I think again it could work, and it will work in certain markets now. The thing for me though that every recruiter will look at, you can do 50 calls simultaneously. It will be pretty good. It will screen. It will get the data back into ATS, but you'll be paying £3 a call. And then suddenly it doesn't look like, okay, so I'm spending £150 a minute to screen candidates. And then
it does, like we said before, it does add up. The cost does add up. Agents aren't free, but I guess it does depend on the market. Those where it's high volume and there's a masses of data that you need to get through. AI is where we are right now is very well positioned to take away those time-bearing tasks that we see right now. I mean, I know of a recruiter who they do their entire hiring process with AI. So they put people into jobs into Eastern Europe, and the client has said to this recruiter, I'm absolutely fine with you using AI. They use video interviewing. It has multilingual capability. They assess them, and if the assessment comes back as the standard that they need, they literally allocate them to the job and give them the travel arrangements the same day. So that is in place at the moment, but it won't necessarily be used for high value contract or perm or exec search, I don't think yet. But the thing to consider is, what does the candidate expect? So what does the candidate do they want to be talking to an actual recruiter? I personally would if I was looking for a new job. But guys coming into the workforce now, are they okay engaging with an AI agent, knowing it's an AI agent? I would argue yes, and the initial feedback is that they're quite happy, and they actually don't want to be engaging with a recruiter. They feel like it's too salesy and too pushy, whereas some of the AI tools are very upfront about using AI, and the candidate's pleased about it.
Yeah, I think that was the research. So when I was running the innovation team at S3, the research that we had was at certain stages, people would prefer a bot. People would prefer, because the bot was available when they were. The bot actually listened to them and didn't, took no for an answer, which may or may not be a good thing, as recruiters are quite good at, sometimes you do need a little persuasion. But there was a feeling that for those transactional pieces, that they were perfectly happy, and in some instances preferred it. And in our whole, Agentic AI is like teenage sex. Everyone's talking about it, very few doing it, nobody doing it well.
I think that's what you said to me about a year ago, Andy.
Did I?
You did, and I've used it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, Andy. Maybe that's just your childhood, but anyway. So though we're building proprietary tech, but how integrating into the CRM is a challenge. Does TargetRecruit have an MCP server?
Seriously though, we are building proprietary tech, but tech now, but integrating
Is that quite a technical one we need to take off?
I don't know, seriously though, we are building proprietary tech, but tech now, but integrating the CRM is a challenge. It depends on the CRM, Andrew. So, because we're built on Salesforce, the integration capabilities are very, very flexible. So I would need to look at it in more detail, but the likelihood that it could integrate with some work is pretty high.
Okay. I'll let you two have a chat. So David Jenkins, for those who are using agencies currently talking to candidates, what percentage are telling the candidates they're talking to an agent, not a real person, and not they don't? Have you seen any issues where businesses have implemented agents for screening?
Yeah, so what I've seen is that most people are very transparent that it is an AI agent that they're talking to. So, and again, depends on the generation of the person at the end of the phone. Most seem to be pretty receptive. The younger the person, the more receptive that they are. But yeah, I don't think many people are hiding away from it. They're being open about it. And I think that gains trust, ironically, with the candidates they're wanting to talk to. What has gone wrong with businesses who have implemented agents for screening, and why? It's hard to call out actual examples, but probably not understanding the answers, not understanding the requirements, not understanding what's required of the candidate against the job. But that goes back to how the agent's set up initially, and it goes back to the training model as well. And we must remember that those training models are constantly being improved. So the longer that they use and the more clients who are adopting them, the better the results are going to be. But I would think it would all come back down to what's being asked of it, and then the data that's being used. There is obviously bias in that as well, because the training data is tested by individuals, so that can be a concern. But again, these AI companies are always wanting to get ahead of the competition, and they're spending a fortune in getting rid of bias and training the models accordingly. And they've known to do that for years now. So it's not something like they're forgetting about, but bias is a consideration that AI has been known to fall foul of?
So yeah, I mean, certainly, I think in terms of, I think you're going to see legislation. You see it in the States. So if you make a call and it's an automated call and not a human call, you have to declare it. So I think that right at the start of the call, and I think that feels like that will just go into other territories as a default. You should know whether, in the same way that I think you're going to have things that are generated, images, videos. It's almost like you need to declare this was created by artificial intelligence as opposed to this is a natural thing, because it's going to get so difficult to tell the difference. I mean, the calls that we listened to and a couple of the suppliers that myself and Delta saw in London this year at Rec Expo, pretty good. And it's only going to get better and better and better.
It'll just be a matter of time where you cannot tell the difference. You will not know whether you're speaking to an AI agent or a human. And even if you're being interviewed, like this is similar setup to here, if you're being interviewed, you're going through a screening process, before long you won't know that it's not a person you're talking to. We'll be just months away from that. You can tell now it's usually the lip sync which falls down, but that'll be tidied up before long, and you literally won't know. You won't know.
So I can have Andy Agent come on and do my LinkedIn Live. So
you can and you will.
Wow, will it be as entertaining?
Well, I'm not saying you will, but people will.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have, I guess ultimately you're going to have one-on-one podcasts. Yeah, but podcast again, agent on agent podcast. Yeah, agents talking to each other.
You will, of course you will. Yeah, you make up any scenario that you want, so you can hear two different personalities talking to one another. So what's that? So building the out internally, but the restricted point is getting nowadays. Okay.
I think that looks quite a technical question for you to.
Yeah, I'll speak to you after the LinkedIn Live if I can, Andrew, and just get back to you on that. Thanks for the clarity, though. So
I think the other thing, there was a big, I don't know if you saw my post yesterday on S3's numbers. Thanks, David Jenkins. You can't train those one-liners. Absolutely, you're so right. I did a post yesterday on S3's results, and it followed on from Hayes' week, where I think a fair few people are calling the death of large recruitment companies, and I think things change. Like we say, I think these big organisations are they're like super tankers, whereas small firms obviously a bit more like speedboats. But I feel as well that some of these big organizations will have the ability to take on board and integrate this a lot, probably at a bigger scale, and therefore maybe get bigger benefits than some of the boutique recruiters. So I don't know your call on that, Neil.
I think they will, and they'll probably see more benefit just because of the volume that they're going through. But those boutique recruiters, they can still see massive benefits in using AI properly and using AI agents to take away the manual tasks, which for those smaller businesses is actually probably more important because they don't have the bandwidth to be necessarily doing some of the things that they want to be doing. It was a question I actually got asked yesterday around AI and AI agents is, our recruitment businesses, are they well set up to reskill their own workforce with the time that AI is going to free up? And I thought it was a really insightful question. And I mean, I can't speak on the behalf of others, but I guess the answer in some cases is going to be right now, no. Like, what are you going to be able to do if you do free up people's time? So I think that LinkedIn, again, they did a survey and they reckon that 35 to 40% of a recruiter's weekly work, I'm not saying they reckon, that was the feedback they got. So 2 days a week was spent on admin, was spent on manual work they don't need to be doing. It's an hour here, it's an hour there, but it all adds up. But when you get rid of that by using AI and AI agents, do people actually know what they're going to be doing with that freed up time? Like, are they going to be strategic? Are they going to spend more time face to face? Are they going to be doing more personalized outreach? I don't know what the answers are, but I think that's a really important consideration. Sorry?
They'll get better at table tennis. That was the and that was the real issue. At S3, Russell Clements used to be pretty furious all the time about we're spending all this money, and it just makes people's lives easier, and we still seem to get the same, similar number, same results. If you actually look, then you basically see that productivity probably hasn't changed, certainly in the UK, for a number of years. But the job in some ways has got easier, but also as well it's got a lot more complex as well. So I think you've almost got this, the 360 job when I was doing it last century was a lot more simple. Now it's a lot more complex when I see 360s and what they have to do in terms of all the channels they need to manage, in terms of everyone has to be a social media guru. You've got lots of different competing things, and the competition's hard as well. So I think, is this something that's going to add to productivity? To your point, given 2 days back, we can do more deals, or is it something that is just going to maintain productivity, and you'll find that equilibrium as more people enter or leave the market?
Yeah, I think it'll just, like what we were discussing before, I think it'll just change the nature of what people are expected to do in their day-to-day job. Like I'm no doubt that my job as working in sales will be different in a matter of years compared to what I'm doing right now, and I'm sure we'll be telling more stories about what we used to do way back in the day. And I think AI is going to be the catalyst to change that, and it's going to be much more impactful than anything like the internet that when it came around. It just will be. It just will be.
So Stuart Mitchell, who says, I'm not an old school recruiter, and I don't know. I think people when they say that probably are a little bit, but he's got a really good point here. Everyone's going to have access to this. I think the power of generative people are just going to ignore their phone, email, and I agree. It loves AI for non-people facing tasks, but thinks it will be different when it gets to human facing.
I agree. I think it'll actually, quite ironically, AI will increase the personalization and face-to-face contact that recruiters will have with their clients and candidates. It'll free up time so people can actually spend more time doing what they used to do decades ago, but they're drowning in admin right now and they can't do it. You're saying, everyone's going to have access, so it's just going to reset the playing field. Yes and no. It depends how many people are going to actually adopt the technology. There's a lot of recruitment companies out there who are still way behind the curve, and even talking about Gen AI, never mind automation, never mind data, is a huge hurdle for them. So actually getting onto the AI agent bandwagon and adopting that is still way behind some people's thought process. So yeah, will it ultimately reset the playing field? It will, but I don't think but that'll be years to come. People will still continue with their own existing ways of working without necessarily using AI to allow them to go faster.
And I really do agree with Stuart, though. I think what AI will do is it will just create so much noise. So I think in the same way that when I started in recruitment, it was about finding the CV, because you had the data. You didn't have a lot of data as an agency. Now, subsequently, with all these data sources, it's about filtering. So the parameters have changed. The actual role, I think, has changed in a lot of ways. In a similar way, if you're doing, you've got bots. I mean, you get outreach every day. The amount of outreach I get from people telling me how many leads they can bring into my business is phenomenal. Probably, I don't know, somewhere 50, 60 a day. I would have thought I'm getting pumped with this. How do I know what's real? How do those people? And typically, what I'd do is I'd go to my network and I'd say, who's really good? And I would go, and to your point, Stuart Mitchell, I would go to that human aspect first to get my recommendation, long before I'd go. And I think cold outreach is become more and more difficult for people. So how do you then get that warm outreach? Point from Nick Eves, fascinating that productivity has not improved meaningfully the advent of better tech. Are you saying, Andy, that increasing difficulty of the recruitment job offsets the productivity and benefits of tech AI? I think I am. And I think why I'm saying that is because I think all of the new technology that, I can say that over a 25-year-old career, it has has improved things and taken away things. And for example, job boards gave us much more reach. LinkedIn's giving us much more reach, the ability to get in. I genuinely feel that then you've had more people enter the market. So, and it feels like it's almost you're running faster, buying more tools to do the same. And I genuinely, that's my take. I think, with the odd exception, I think coming off the back of the market that ended in 22, I think you've seen the consolidation of the market. Depending on what made up statistic you believe, somewhere between 20 and 30% less recruiters in the market. So I think although there's less jobs in that time, there's probably there or thereabouts as much to go around. And I think we're either in a slightly less than normal market or approaching a normal market at the moment. So my view is that it's technology is constantly benefiting people just to stand still. That's my take.
Yeah, and I think I would agree with you. I think in certain areas that's the case, and you could argue, well, the more tech there is, just the more that people have to adopt, and then there's more noise. But like what you mentioned just before, Andy, the expectations of what people need to do in their job now is much more than it ever has been. Like trying to be a social media expert, that takes a lot of time and thought to get it right. And would you have had that problem 20 years ago? Of course you wouldn't. So I think there's just more things to contend with, and tech tries to get you along, but then there's other things which add up on the pile.
So back to David Jenkins. Once an agency gets an agent, what would you say the first 3 things they should do are? I'm going to file one back for you as well, David. What would you call your agent, your first one? What's the first 3 things you should do?
So I would say candidate engagement on your website. I would say sourcing and matching and data enrichment. They were the 3 things that I would be looking for. So the enrichment, you can make sure your data is clean and you're constantly topping it up with relevant information. Engage with your candidates through your website, which we know is not always done very effectively. I'm not saying to you, David, but in general in recruitment, and the sourcing and the matching, as long as it works.
Yeah, you call your agent Andy. Of course you would, David. So I think what I do is alongside those, I would look at the data enrichment and the candidate enrichment is a real opportunity. So 95% of people's data is their duff. I would use it for bringing that data back into your living up that data again. So old candidates, where are they up to now? What are they doing? Having that permanent conversation. If you think about, I think B2C is very good at doing this. If you look at the likes of Amazon, eBay, they're constantly tempting you, constantly giving you, drawing you back in, and having that permanent conversation with you. And I think that's how I would use it. And definitely, I think get it used to bringing people back in, talking. So in your case, David, vertical advantage, the people you haven't spoken to in the last 2 or 3 years. They're probably at a stage now where they might be looking or they might be thinking, but how can you engage them? And that might be across a number of different channels. That might be email, that might be SMS, that may well be WhatsApp, may well be LinkedIn. So again, it does. So I think you do need a baseline of data, but then I think you can enrich, and then I think you can definitely enrich the brand. So yeah, that's where I'd start. Andy Agent at Vertical Advantage, David. So just as a bit of a wrap up for me, I think we've explored some really interesting. So first and foremost, hopefully anyone leaving this conversation gets the principle and the concept of agentic AI, because it genuinely took me a while to sort of get my head around it, and I still don't think I'm there. And I think I'm very much at the very initial thought processes around I could use it for that, I could use it for that, I could use it for that. What should people be doing now, Neil? Because you can see it's a mega trend. It's happening. What's the one thing that people should start doing now to prepare?
Well, there's actually 3 things I would say, and I'll keep it short. But speak with your existing provider. So understand what they're doing around agents, what's on their roadmap, what's the vision of their product with agents. Speak with your network, such as RecWired, understand what's going on, where the challenges have been, where the successes have been, and also just do some research yourself, just like you would do with anything else in a sphere of your life, whether you're looking at other tech, you're going on holiday, you're buying presents. Have a look to see what the capabilities of agents are, because some of it will still be relevant to your business, but there's also stuff out there which isn't. So get a real idea of the capabilities of agents and where they might be able to step in and help you. So yeah, speak to your supplier, speak to your network, and then do market research.
Awesome. Right. So thanks for your time, Neil, as always. Always good.
Good seeing you.
If anyone wants to get hold of you and talk about Agentic AI and TargetRecruit, how do they do that?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Neil Curry. I think I'm one of the top results. So just drop us a connection, a follow request, and then we can pick up from there.
Fantastic. Catch up soon. Cheers, Neil.
Thanks, Andy.